from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And welcome. My pleasure to be here with you guys. Happy to be here on this Thursday night. We're live, we're national, and we're tapped into the Democrat National Committee. So whatever's going down over there, we'll be able to bring you the latest on that. The phone number here, if you want to join our conversation, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez is the phone number. And what's going on in the world? Well, a little bit of what's going on is you've got the DNC still hogging up a lot of the headlines, and that's cool. I mean, some of it's pretty funny stuff. You got comedian D.L. Hewley, who D.L. Hewley, just by the way, I used to work with the guy in 2018, 2019. He had a show that I guess he still has a show, but he would record out of or broadcast live from the studio. We were all in the same place. And what a heck of a nice guy. Let me tell you, we don't agree on anything politically. And we actually never even talked about politics. I don't even think he knew anything about my political positions. He just was a genuinely nice guy. And every time he came to the studio, we always, would shoot the breeze. And what a heck of a nice guy. Very, very far apart on our political opinions, though. But he was at the DNC, and here's what he had to say.
Now, of course, Trump is saying that Kamala isn't black. I guarantee you this, Kamala's been black a lot longer than Trump's been a Republican. And if he keeps sliding in the polls the way he is, the only way he can keep Kamala out of the White House is if he buys it and refuses to rent it to her.
Anyway, I thought the first joke was funny. Kamala's been black longer than he's been a Republican. I have a good appreciation for a joke, a good joke. Anyway, the second joke probably went over my head. It just didn't work for me. But he was there last night. We had some of those people. We talked about those. We also have Eva Longoria right now is on the stage or wrapping up. And star power, right? There's rumors of Taylor Swift, rumors of Beyonce. There's even rumors of former President George W. Bush. And I'll tell you, I might have some disagreement with George W. Bush, but I don't think he is the devil incarnate like some of my conservative colleagues. I don't. And maybe I just haven't arrived there yet. Maybe I am too soft, too blandito. Maybe. But I just don't. I think it was a different time. I think people weren't aware of so many things, and that's it. Oh, is that Adam Kinzinger? Looks like Adam Kinzinger. I believe it's Kinzinger, but I like to call him Kinzinger just because it's funnier to me. Adam, former congressman, he's up there doing what all the never Trumpers have been doing, beating up on Trump, trying to help Kamala have some poll bump, and of course, going into the weekend, she should probably again have some sort of a bump in the polls because she's going to get out there and repeat that she knows his type. She is a prosecutor. He is a felon. Blah 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 blah. I think the people that resonates with, by and large, has already resonated. However, you never know. You might get a few of those undecided people that were like, look, I don't know. Maybe I was going to go with her, but, the economy's just not good. So, again, a little flash in the pan, a little bump. I don't think it's the end of the day because I think once the media spend comes forward, right, once you've got the Trump campaign and the Harris campaign, when they go all out to talk about their main pitch for Election Day, it's clear what you're going to hear, right? Trump is going to be on the issues. The biggest attack that you're going to hear from Trump on Kamala is Kamala Harris, too radical to be president. That's not necessarily a stretch. It really isn't. She has some pretty radical positions, funding the Minnesota Freedom Fund, the people that were burning down cities, burning down police departments, burning down everything they could get their hands on, bailing them out, really, raising money for this bail fund. Again, she's entitled. She has her rights, sure. But when it comes to moderate versus extreme, that is something that the extreme left does. That's not a moderate Democrat position. Let's bail people out because we don't believe in cash bail. But since we don't believe in it, we're going to help you because we want you to do more of this. We want you back on the street very quickly. Come on. Right? And whether you hide behind the guise of I don't want to see any more minorities in jail or whatever. Bottom line is you're endorsing crime. You're trying to codify crime. That's not helpful. Not helpful at all. But this is where Kamala Harris landed on that. So I would say that's pretty radical. It's pretty extreme. When she said that North Korea is one of our allies, I'd say that's pretty radical, pretty extreme, even if it was a gaffe. It's radical and extreme. The policies that she's recommended, the Green New Deal, you name it. Pretty extreme. Not mainstream at all. So we're going to see how this unfolds. But I think that's going to be Trump's main attack on her. Otherwise, he's just going to say, was life better for you 4 years ago with me than it was with her? Did you know that African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans all enjoyed better unemployment rates, the best unemployment rates ever in our country's history during El Trompito's watch? So I think there's a lot of points that he's going to make. What point is she going to make? He's a felon. He's a felon. He's a felon. We don't like him. We don't like him because we don't like him. And that's it. And I think ultimately that isn't going to sway enough people. That's my thought. He's a threat to democracy. He's a threat to I just don't think it's going to take root the way they expect it's going to take root. Anyway, Kamala Harris is expected to take the stage in a little bit. We're going to get some reaction to that if it happens by then. If not, we're going to get a little preview from Trump spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt. And we're also going to talk about what's up with this attack on the family. We've been seeing it all week from the Democrats at the DNC in Chicago. And it's unfortunate, right, in my opinion. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later, the attack on the family, as well as what can you expect when you get divorced. Now, there's a few particular topics that we're going to talk about, and I happen to have been divorced. I don't recommend it to anybody at all. But a couple of interesting topics, one of them being that bartenders and telemarketers are amongst the jobs with the highest divorce rate. I'm wondering why. We're going to get into that a little bit later. Anyway, folks, keep it locked right here. We're coming right back. We're going to get a little bit of analysis and insight on what's going on at the DNC tonight. Your calls and more are coming up as well. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
All right, folks, so we're taking a look at what's going on at the Democrat National Convention in Chicago. It's happening live right now, and there's a woman wearing a pink pantsuit. Kind of looks like Kamala Harris with a really good suntan, a little bit younger, too. I understand that she is the sister of Kamala Harris. Her name is Maya Harris. Listen to this.
Joy throughout the nation, and it is why we need her leadership in this historic moment. We are living in a time when some are trying to divide us, to separate us in ways that make it difficult for us to come together. Well, look, my sister rejects that view. Where others push darkness, Kamala sees promise. Where others feel detachment, Kamala fosters connection. Where others want to drag us back to the past, my sister says, hold up now, we are not going back.
We are not going back, says Maya Harris. And again, while their mantra is let's talk bad about the other guy. I get it. It's a political campaign, but it's never let's talk good about what we're actually going to do. At no point did she say, because my sister's leadership on the XYZ legislation, because my sister's actions on job creation. Oh, wait, the jobs are all fake, right? Or at least 818,000 of them, nearly 1 million of them were fake. This is the problem when you don't have a record to stand on and you say things like, we did it, Joe, and talk about Bidenomics, which has now become Kamalanomics. It's not going to work out well. And that's why I say as we get closer and closer to Election Day, people have to make a choice, and they're not going to make a choice. I mean, some of them will, like some of the people that call on this program that don't like me or want to disagree with me, that do like me and just have different opinions. I think some of those people are out of spite going to vote for anyone but Trump, anyone, because they don't like Trump for whatever reason. And that's fine. That's their right. They're entitled to. But it's not like they're going to vote for Harris because of something that she stands for, because she doesn't stand for it. And that is the issue, right? That is definitely the issue. Now, President Trump giving a speech today down by the border had this to say. Listen to this.
In terms of personality, I don't think she has a personality because she's allowed crime to flourish wherever she wants. And if I were a person, I wouldn't like that personality. That's not the personality I want. Whatever she's got, they don't have it because San Francisco was crime-ridden, and it's gotten worse and worse. I mean, she had policies at $950. You can steal anything you want up to $950 in a store, and they're not going to prosecute the people. They have policies that are absolutely insane. This guy Walsh comes out and he wants tampons sold in young men's bathrooms. You have to have tampons available, not even sold, available in young men's bathrooms. We're giving our government away when we put two lunatics like this in. They can't, if they take over our government as president and vice president, our country doesn't stand a chance.
Our country doesn't stand a chance. Again, that was not Trump at the border. Excuse me. That was Trump on Fox News this morning. We have some audio of Trump at the border, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I think Trump is right. Again, now he's creating contrast, and he's pointing out the issues, right? And that is an issue. That's a social issue that matters to a lot of people. I don't know how many it matters to. And that would be a good poll to see. How many people care that tampons are being put in by law, by statute, were placed in the boys' bathroom in Minnesota? I'm curious to know. I think it's a bad idea. I don't think kids should grow up with that. Right? If a girl needs that, maybe she can bring one from home or whatever she's got to do. Or maybe they do sell them in the girls' bathroom. I've never been in a girls' bathroom. But what I can say is I've been a boy, and I've been a teenage boy and a high school boy, and I've never, ever needed a tampon, ever, in the bathroom or anywhere else. So the question becomes, is it necessary to push this agenda that you can be whatever gender you feel like being on what we can presume to be otherwise normal, healthy children? I think it's a bad idea. This is a social issue that I think I'm not alone on. I think there's a number of people that would agree, right? This is not attacking the premise that people can't be transgender. This is not attacking the premise of how we look at people. This is about using a public school, creating a law to require these things be put in a boy's bathroom. That to me sounds problematic. I don't know. Call me crazy. I just think that's not the way to go. Now, I do want to go to this clip of Trump in Cochise County, Arizona. He is at the border today, and he's going to be again in Arizona tomorrow as well. And he doesn't want. He talks about Kamala not wanting to build the wall or to finish the wall that he started. Listen to this.
We have a Marxist that's running, and I don't think you can let her. Well, this country is not ready for a Marxist president. She will never build the wall. She doesn't want to build the wall. She's only saying if she changes her mind, it's only because she wants to get elected, because who wouldn't want to have a strong border? You need strong borders and strong elections, and we have neither. But we're going to have very strong borders, and we're going to have very strong elections soon. The people are fed up. It's common sense. The people are just fed up.
The people are fed up. Of course they are. Who wouldn't be fed up? This is just out of control, what we have going on. Especially when you look at what's going on in New York City and other, I'm going to say border towns, right? Because New York City has effectively become a border town because it is a sanctuary city. Things are overrun. You know, we often see, if you're not a New Yorker, you've seen this video on television, on the news, at some point in the last year or two or three or four, of the famous Roosevelt Hotel in Manhattan. The last time I was in that building, I was at a swanky rooftop party and then went to dinner with a shoe designer, and I had a very nice time, and it wasn't cheap, right? It was a very fancy, ritzy kind of high-end place. Not, the Four Seasons high-end, but it wasn't cheap, is my point. And after all, it's Manhattan. Manhattan's rarely ever cheap. But here we are. We've turned the Roosevelt Hotel and so many others into public housing, right? They're paying the regular hotel rate, $400 to $500 a night. And these places are being trashed. They're being destroyed. When you see the wear and tear, it's just, it's unconscionable, honestly. Sadly, that's the case. And yet, Kamala wants an open border. Well, Trump alluded to that as well when he addressed that at his speech in Cochise County today. Listen to this.
And I hope the press writes this story fairly, because it's a story of disgrace. We had a border czar who was the border czar. She loved the title, but she didn't want to do the work because she's lazy. And probably more importantly than being lazy, she wants to have an open border. And you say, who would want an open border where criminals can pour into our country? And all you have to do is walk up there, if you have the courage to do it, and go to that open section. Stand there for a little while. You'll be running back here very quickly. You really have to write this fairly, this story. Because you people don't want to talk about the border. You don't want to talk about the bad things that are going on in our country. We're going to end up not having a country. You're not going to have any media. We don't have media. They don't have media. They do their own media. They don't need media.
Listen, Trump nails it each and every time. Honestly, he does. The media is who's responsible for the fact that there are any people that don't see the issues, right? The fact that there are people thinking, I don't know, I don't like Trump. I think he's a threat to democracy. Come on. When was the last time anybody ever voted because they thought something was a threat to democracy? The whole thing is fake, phony, and fraud. The issues here are inflation and the border. That's it. And if people can't see that, they can't see it. Man, I wish I had that audio of Don Lemon on the boardwalk in Atlantic City. That was an eye-opener. Anyway, I'll put it on social media if you want to check it out, at Rich Valdez with an S. Folks, we're coming right back. We continue with your calls, more, and the DNC live from Chicago. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez live with you till 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm here in New York. We're covering the DNC, the Democrat National Convention, and moments ago, Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee for president, has come out. She's doing a slow clap. She's wearing all black, dressed like the Omen, and she's there doing the Bill Clinton point to anonymous people in the crowd, the Pope wave. She's strutting very slowly, amazing standing ovation. It's a packed house, and her family's there in the front row. Everybody's really cheering her on. She looks like a little kid in a candy store, and the Kamala signs are just floating all over the place. If you're not watching this, I'm trying to give you the play-by-play. Kamala Harris, Democrat nominee for president, about to take the stage. Let's go to live. She seems very thankful.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
I don't know if you can hear that. There's a USA chant going out in the back, and she came out to a song called Freedom.
We got to get to some business. We got to get to some business. Okay. Thank you all. Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, please, thank you, please, thank you so very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Okay, let's get to business. Let's get to business. All right. So let me start by thanking my most incredible husband, Doug, for being an incredible partner to me, an incredible father to Cole and Ella, and happy anniversary, Dougie. I love you so very much. To our President Joe Biden, when I think about the path that we have traveled together, Joe, I am filled with gratitude. Your record is extraordinary, as history will show, and your character is inspiring. And Doug and I love you and Jill and are forever thankful to you both. And to Coach Tim Walz, you are going to be an incredible vice president. And to the delegates and everyone who has put your faith in our campaign, your support is humbling. So, America, the path that led me here in recent weeks was no doubt unexpected. But I'm no stranger to unlikely journeys. So, my mother, our mother, Kamala Harris, had one of her own. And I miss her every day, and especially right now. And I know she's looking down smiling. I know that. So my mother was 19 when she crossed the world alone, traveling from India to California with an unshakable dream to be the scientist who would cure breast cancer. When she finished school, she was supposed to return home to a traditional arranged marriage. But as fate would have it, she met my father, Donald Harris, a student from Jamaica. They fell in love and got married, and that act of self-determination made my sister Maya and me. Growing up, we moved a lot. I will always remember that big Mayflower truck packed with all our belongings, ready to go to Illinois, to Wisconsin, and wherever our parents' jobs took us. My early memories of our parents together are very joyful ones. A home filled with laughter and music, Aretha, Coltrane, and Miles. At the park, my mother would say, "Stay close." But my father would say, as he smiled, "Run, Kamala, run. Don't be afraid. Don't let anything stop you." From my earliest years, he taught me to be fearless. But the harmony between my parents did not last. When I was in elementary school, they split up. and it was mostly my mother who raised us. Before she could finally afford to buy a home, she rented a small apartment in the East Bay. In the Bay, you either live in the hills or the flatlands. We lived in the flats. A beautiful working-class neighborhood of firefighters, nurses, and construction workers, all who tended their lawns with pride. My mother, she worked long hours, and like many working parents, she leaned on a trusted circle to help raise us. Mrs. Shelton, who ran the daycare below us and became a second mother. Uncle Sherman, Aunt Mary, Uncle Freddie, Auntie Chris. None of them family by blood, and all of them family by love. Family who taught us how to make gumbo, how to play chess, and sometimes even let us win. Family who loved us, believed in us, and told us we could be anything and do anything. They instilled in us the values they personified: community, faith, and the importance of treating others as you would want to be treated, with kindness, respect, and compassion. My mother was a brilliant, 5-foot-tall, brown woman with an accent. And as the eldest child, I saw how the world would sometimes treat her. But my mother never lost her cool. She was tough, courageous, a trailblazer in the fight for women's health, and she taught Maya and me a lesson that Michelle mentioned the other night. She taught us to never complain about injustice, but do something about it. Do something about it. That was my mother. And she taught us, and she also taught us, and never do anything half-assed. And that is a direct quote. A direct quote. I grew up immersed in the ideals of the civil rights movement. My parents had met at a civil rights gathering, and they made sure that we learned about civil rights leaders, including the lawyers like Thurgood Marshall and Constance Baker Motley, those who battled in the courtroom to make real the promise of America. So at a young age, I decided I wanted to do that work. I wanted to be a lawyer. And when it came time to choose the type of law I would pursue, I reflected on a pivotal moment in my life. You see, when I was in high school, I started to notice something about my best friend, Wanda. She was sad at school, and there were times she didn't want to go home. So one day I asked if everything was all right, and she confided in me that she was being sexually abused by her stepfather. And I immediately told her she had to come stay with us, and she did. This is one of the reasons I became a prosecutor, to protect people like Wanda, because I believe everyone has a right to safety, to dignity, and to justice.
Folks, that is Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, Democrat nominee for president, accepting her nomination. We're going to pause right here, coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
much all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue listening to the acceptance speech of Kamala Harris for president.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America. And with this election, Our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward. Not as members of any one party or faction, but as Americans. And let me say, I know there are people of various political views watching tonight, and I want you to know, I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country above party and self, to hold sacred America's fundamental principles, from the rule of law to free and fair elections to the peaceful transfer of power.
Harris taking some veiled attempts at El Trompito in her speech regarding the peaceful transition of power. Let's continue.
A president who leads and listens, who is realistic, practical, and has common sense, and always fights for the American people. From the courthouse to the White House, that has been my life's work. As a young courtroom prosecutor in Oakland, California, I stood up for women and children against predators who abuse them. As Attorney General of California, I took on the big banks, delivered $20 billion for middle-class families who faced foreclosure, and helped pass a homeowner Bill of Rights, one of the first of its kind in the nation. I stood up for veterans and students being scammed by big for-profit colleges, for workers who are being cheated out of their wages, the wages they were due, for seniors facing elder abuse. I fought against the cartels who traffic in guns and drugs and human beings, who threaten the security of our border and the safety of our communities. And I will tell you, these fights were not easy, and neither were the elections that put me in those offices. We were underestimated at practically every turn, but we never gave up, because the future is always worth fighting for. Fight for America's future. Fellow Americans, this election is not only the most important of our lives, it is one of the most important in the life of our nation. In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious. Consider not only the chaos and calamity when he was in office, but also the gravity of what has happened since he lost the last election. Donald Trump tried to throw away your votes. When he failed, he sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol, where they assaulted law enforcement officers. When politicians in his own party begged him to call off the mob and send help, he did the opposite. He fanned the flames. And now, for an entirely different set of crimes, he was found guilty of fraud by a jury of everyday Americans and separately found liable for committing sexual abuse. And consider what he intends to do if we give him power again. Consider his explicit intent to set free violent extremists who assaulted those law enforcement officers at the Capitol. His explicit intent to jail journalists, political opponents, and anyone he sees as the enemy. His explicit intent to deploy our active duty military against our own citizens. Consider the power he will have, especially after the United States Supreme Court just ruled that he would be immune from criminal prosecution.
Folks, that is Kamala Harris laying it on really thick. When we come back, I'm going to break down some of what she's talking about, and we're going to get the rest of the story. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And we're going to wrap up with Kamala Harris at the DNC accepting her nomination for president, where she is throwing Trump under the bus, one lie after the next, blaming everything about January 6th, sex abuse charges. Of course, she's talking about the E. Jean Carroll, using the military against citizens, and so much more. I'm going to give you another minute of this before we take our pause and come right back. Check this out.
And Medicare. Now compare that to Donald Trump, because I think everyone here knows he doesn't actually fight for the middle class. He doesn't actually fight for the middle class. Instead, he fights for himself and his billionaire friends. And he will give them another round of tax breaks that will add up to $5 trillion to the national debt. And all the while, he intends to enact what in effect is a national sales tax, call it a Trump tax.
The Trump tax would replace the income tax. Sangana. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the second hour of the program. It is Thursday night. We are covering the Democrat National Convention live. It's happening in Chicago. Kamala Harris, how bad she is. The Vice President of the United States has accepted her nomination to be president. She's giving her acceptance speech, which sounds more like a big campaign speech, but she's talked about a number of things, many of these things, falsehoods against Donald Trump, but she's going hard on why Trump is a bad guy. And she is, I have to say, to her credit, she is trying to create some sort of contrast between her and Trump on some issues. Foreign policy, namely, she just said that she had spoken with Zelensky prior to the invasion, and it still got invaded. I'm thinking, Kamala, you probably should have forgot that one. It doesn't bode well for you. But we're going to tap back into Vice President Harris as she finishes her speech, and then we're going to get some analysis straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
Interests against Iran and Iran-backed terrorists. I will not cozy up to tyrants and dictators like Kim Jong-un who are rooting for Trump. Because, you know, they know he is easy to manipulate with flattery and favors. They know Trump won't hold autocrats accountable because he wants to be an autocrat himself. And as president, I will never waver in defense of America's security and ideals, because in the enduring struggle between democracy and tyranny, I know where I stand and I know where the United States belongs. I love our country with all my heart. Everywhere I go, in everyone I meet, I see a nation that is ready to move forward, ready for the next step in the incredible journey that is America. I see an America where we hold fast to the fearless belief that built our nation and inspired the world, that here in this country, anything is possible, that nothing is out of reach. An America where we care for one another, look out for one another, and recognize that we have so much more in common than what separates us. That none of us has to fail for all of us to succeed. And that in unity there is strength. You know, our opponents in this race are out there every day denigrating America, talking about how terrible everything is. Well, my mother had another lesson she used to teach. Never let anyone tell you who you are. You show them who you are. Let us show each other and the world who we are and what we stand for. Freedom, opportunity, compassion, dignity, fairness, and endless possibilities. We are the heirs to the greatest democracy in the history of the world. And on behalf of our children and our grandchildren and all those who sacrificed so dearly for our freedom and liberty, we must be worthy of this moment. It is now our turn to do what generations before us have done, guided by optimism and faith, to fight for this country we love, to fight for the ideals we cherish, and to uphold the awesome responsibility that comes with the greatest privilege on earth, the privilege and pride of being an American. So let's get out there, let's fight for it, let's get out there, let's vote for it, and together, let us write the next great chapter in the most extraordinary story ever told. Thank you. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, the acceptance speech of Kamala Harris, how bad she is. And let me tell you, it was a well-delivered speech. I wasn't thrilled with her choice of black wardrobe, black on black. I don't get it. But either way, I'll give her credit where credit's due. She delivered the speech well. It seemed upbeat. It got a little dark in the middle there when she started beating up Trump and really laying on a lot of rhetoric that was, beyond rhetoric. It was just straight up lies. I want to bring in our guest, Terry Schilling. Terry Schilling standing by to give us some analysis and his reaction to the speech. And Terry Schilling, some of the things that I heard tonight were really interesting and problematic for me, I thought, because she mentioned, Vice President Harris mentioned how Trump was going to use the military against citizens. He was going to eliminate Social Security and Medicare. Let's see. She hearkened on the freedom to drink clean water and to vote, as if these things were under attack by Trump. And this is not something I've even heard him be accused of before. So I just thought, why put that in a speech of this magnitude? Terry Schilling, who is president of the American Principles Project. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much for having me, Rich. It was a fine speech. I think it was a bit unhinged. To add to the laundry list that you just laid out of things she just made up, I think she said that Donald Trump would track women's miscarriages and abortions and have them reported to the government. I've been a part of the pro-life, pro-family movement for like my entire life. I've never heard of any type of proposal like that. I have no clue what she's talking about, but it's unhinged. And listen, let's take a step back. Let's take a step back and look at this moment. She is the first African-American woman nominee for the Democratic Party. And if she were to get this, it would be, you would think, at least as historic as the election of Barack Obama in 2008. This was not a historic speech tonight. This was a campaign stump speech. It was no vision for the future of America. It was a laundry list of fake grievances against Donald Trump that were completely made up. The world was safer under Donald Trump. There was no war in Ukraine. When Donald Trump was president, there was no pending invasion of Taiwan from the CCP. There was no Israeli war in the Middle East. There was peace among the world, and it was because he knew how to keep peace, which is to walk softly and carry a big stick. But this was not a historic speech. This was not someone that I think is actually looking to cast a vision of how she plans to govern America and what she's planning to do to help alleviate the economic concerns of working families. And Rich, the last thing I'll say in regard to my thoughts here is, if you think about the job that she has to do, she has to take credit for the Biden economy and claim that it was a great smashing success, while also addressing the serious and grave economic problems that our nation faces. It's an impossible task. I couldn't do it. I don't think Barack Obama could do it. Well, maybe he could do it. But I don't think this was anything noteworthy. I don't expect her to see any major bump in the polls after this.
Folks, again, we're on with Terry Schilling, president of the American Principles Project. And, you mentioned there was no war in Ukraine when Trump was in office, and you're right. And she says that 5 days prior to this invasion, that somehow she met with Zelensky and created a plan. I don't know what she was trying to say, because the invasion happened just the same. And the Harris-Biden team, I mean, they botched the Afghanistan withdrawal. They have this policy of appeasement with the Iranian regime, although she tried to speak against it. They've been handing money hand over fist to the Iranians, now giving them, in effect, I would say, a nuke. You've got Harris and Biden, who have allowed the Chinese spy balloon to do just about whatever it wanted above our military bases all over the country, your neighborhood, my neighborhood, waited till it was well out of the way and not doing anything bad, and said, all right, let's shoot that down, and then shot down some other innocuous balloons to try and seem tough on this stuff. What else did they do? They reversed President Trump's decision to cut Palestinian aid, which typically goes right into the hands of terrorists. So again, funding Iran in an indirect way. And 11 U.S. embassies across the globe have been evacuated under Kamala Harris, as our enemies become increasingly emboldened by her disastrous foreign policy with him. And what's interesting here is this is what she's trying to take credit for. And to your point, Terry Schilling, this mental gymnastics that she's got to do here while saying, I'm the Kamala from Kamalanomics. Biden is my guy, and she keeps shouting him out, and rightfully so, right? She serves in his administration. She also has to distance herself from this same administration. And she does that by creating all this, trying to create this contrast between her and Trump, as she is the courthouse prosecutor and he is somehow this big bad wolf. And again, I think if you're half asleep, maybe you hear that speech and you go, man, this Trump guy's really no good. But if you're awake and you stop to think for a second, I think it comes across as sheer rhetoric, and it doesn't have much value to it. So, Terry Schilling, thanks for your thoughts. We're going to continue with your thoughts and opinions straight ahead. Folks, if you want to join the conversation, the phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
All right, amigos, and welcome back, familia. We continue our discussion. That is Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, accepting the nomination for president at the DNC live in Chicago just about, 20 minutes ago or so. And our guest is Terry Schilling. He's president of the American Principles Project. Terry Schilling, I want to circle back into this stuff because there were so many things that she said, and I'm trying to figure out, as we are the first in the nation to provide this reaction on this stuff, what do you think is going to be the sticking point tomorrow? Because, she threw everything at him, right? I took some notes. She took on the banks, J6 fraud, sexual abuse, military against citizens, jailing opponents, Social Security and Medicare and ACA, but he failed. Defunding the DOE, which I think is a great idea. But then she said it funds our public schools, which it does not. She harped on abortion. I don't know. It seemed like for 15 minutes. The freedom to drink clean water and vote. He tried to dismantle NATO. The Russia lies that he told Putin to do whatever he wants when it happened on her watch, not his. And Trump denigrating America, always talking about how bad it is. And I thought to myself, a lot of these aren't going to stick. But what do you think the sticking points are tomorrow for, the CNNs of the world? What are they running with? My guess is January 6th.
Yeah, I think that they're going to paint a heavy contrast. They're going to say that, Kamala electrified the crowd with her vision in contrast with Donald Trump on foreign policy and democracy. It's all going to be the same narrative that we've been hearing. She didn't introduce any new themes. She didn't introduce any new attacks that I think are going to stick. And frankly, I think that if the rumors are true with RFK Jr. considering endorsing Donald Trump tomorrow, I think that has the potential to actually eliminate any bubble or, increase in the polls that she may get. I didn't see anything compelling that would alleviate the economic concerns of voters who are very afraid for their families, afraid for their children. Right. And what I found extra offensive tonight was she talked about Donald Trump weaponizing the justice system against his political enemies. And let's just be very clear. There's only one side of this country that's actually being put in prison and targeted by our justice system, and that's conservatives. A lot of old ladies have been put into January 6th gulags. There's a 72-year-old lady, she's a grandmother, who's rotting in federal prison for the next 2 years for having the audacity of praying outside an abortion clinic in Washington, D.C., where they found 5 dead babies in the dumpster. Right? The justice system is weaponized against Donald Trump and his allies. There aren't Democrats going to jail. Hunter Biden still got out scot-free, essentially, right? And so it's just a joke. The media is going to go with this narrative. They're going to say whatever she repeats and says, and it's just unfortunate because I think there's a reason. If you look at everything that they've thrown at Donald Trump, there's a reason he's still alive, and it's because the American experiment is still working. We see through the lies, the vast majority of us do, and we're still speaking up. There was a research that came out yesterday from my good friend Brent Bozell at the Media Research Center that covered that Kamala Harris has had 84% positive news coverage in the media, and Donald Trump's had 89% negative, and he's still at 50%. That tells me that the problems in America that Americans are facing are so great and devastating that it's overcoming serious and horrific media bias. And that says a lot about how bad things are for the everyday person.
Terry Schilling, excellent analysis. I appreciate you joining us late and being flexible with your time. Folks, make sure you check out the AmericanPrinciplesProject.org, AmericanPrinciplesProject.org. And Terry Schilling, let everybody know how they can find you on social media.
You can find me at Schilling 1776, SCHILLING 1776.
All right, brother. Thank you for joining us. Godspeed to you, my man. Folks, straight ahead, we're going to continue our analysis on what happened at the DNC convention, Kamala's speech, and some crazy stuff that goes along with divorce. We're going to get to that in a little bit as well. Plus your calls, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And as the speech given by Kamala Harris, known here affectionately, of course, as Kamala Harris, was somewhat divorced from reality, I want to talk about divorce a little bit. I myself am divorced, and it was horrible for me, honestly. Cost me a fortune, took forever to recover from that. But this is something a lot of people go through. And a couple of things that I saw from a pitch that was sent to us. One of them was 1 in 8 divorces are now caused by student loans. But more interesting than that was divorce by profession. Telemarketers and bartenders and so many others have some of the highest divorce rates. And it comes as no surprise that some of the entertainers that we look up to and see out in the world are looking to get divorced. For example, what's his name? Affleck and J-Lo. And divorce is always all over the news. And I think we have a report on that. Let's listen to this.
Bennifer has broken up. It was supposed to be their happily ever after. The couple reunited after nearly 2 decades apart. Jennifer Lopez filing for divorce from Ben Affleck on what would have been their second wedding anniversary. TMZ reporting Lopez listing the date of the separation as April 26th, saying the couple had no prenuptial agreement. The duo often apart in recent months. Affleck spotted doing business around Los Angeles while J-Lo went on a European cruise, then to the Hamptons where she threw herself a Bridgerton-themed birthday with no sign of Ben.
So they're having their very expensive divorce, or it looks like they're about to have an expensive divorce. But meanwhile, some of these professions with the highest divorce rates, really crazy stuff. Listen to this. You've got gaming managers coming in as number one. Right? People that are managers in casinos and whatnot, 52.9%. Bartenders right behind them, 0.2 of a point, 52.7%. Flight attendants, 50.5. Just imagine that. Because of your profession, you're almost guaranteed to get divorced, or at least half of a guarantee. Well, I want to get to the bottom of this with our guest, Jacqueline Newman. She's a New York City-based divorce lawyer, and she's very well versed on this stuff. You can check out her website at nycdivorcelawyer.com. Jacqueline Newman, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. So tell us, in your experience, what can you tell us about these particular professions, telemarketers, switchboard operators, and whatnot, that have these high rates of divorce? Is there a particular reason why?
I mean, I think if you think about, well, first of all, we can start with flight attendants. You had mentioned those previously.
Oh, sure.
I mean, it almost seems sort of obvious. I mean, you have people that are obviously, traveling and they are, their schedules are pretty erratic. It can be a very lonely situation to the degree that it can be very disruptive in a marriage because you don't have any type of regular schedule. And there's a very strong social network amongst similar to bartenders, similar in restaurants, similar
right. They become all of their own friends because they're always together. Yeah.
Exactly. And they understand each other. They have a commonality that, I wouldn't know what it's like to be a flight attendant and to be living that type of life. But when people have those kind of similar experiences, they're able to commiserate about it. And obviously there are bonding that comes with that. So, and I just learned recently that on long flights, they have a whole upstairs in planes where the people can sleep. So I'm sure that doesn't hurt any of these relationships.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. I had no idea. But it makes sense. It makes all the sense in the world. Now, Jacqueline Newman, what do you have you had a lot of experience with bartenders and the like, or these folks in hospitality that you've had to represent, and can you share some of that?
Sure. So, I mean, we've definitely worked a lot with, with business owners and restaurant owners. And the thing about the world of, owning restaurants, and, I was a waitress for a gazillion years, so I can speak to that. Again, there's a very strong commonality. When you're in the service industry of that type, it's a flirty atmosphere. People, again, you commiserate. Your hours are, usually working very late hours. I think there's just a community almost that forms in a lot of these restaurants. And, again, when you're working late, sometimes you'll have a drink after work. People will hang out after work. You're cleaning up the restaurant. And I think that it could just be, people can be very, very prone to developing relationships in those atmospheres.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. A lot of, off hours work, that seems to be something that could be very familiar. Now, what's your best advice? I feel that, with the advent of the no-fault divorce from, some decades ago, that there seems to be a lot more divorce. And since then, it seems like half of the people getting married end up getting divorced. And my thinking is, I mean, I guess it's good business for anybody who's a divorce lawyer to have clients. But what would your advice be to people that are considering a divorce? Is it something you typically counsel them to do? Something you advise them to seek marital counseling? How do you typically handle that?
So, it's a great question. And one of the first things I generally ask people when they come into my office are you sure you want to get divorced? If they pause for even a nanosecond, I am a very strong believer in you go to marriage counseling. Divorce is not a fun experience. It's very, very expensive. It's emotionally expensive. It's financially expensive. And you only want to do it if you feel that you've tried everything else. You never want to have a regret like that. So again, big proponent of, going through everything. I have people that call me all the time. I have people that have been calling me for, I have one person that's been calling me for almost 10 years. Every couple of years, I get a phone call from him saying that he thinks he wants to get divorced. We talk it out. I say, are you sure? He says, I'm not totally sure. I said, call me back when you're sure. And he's always like, how will I know? I was like, you'll just know. I think people just know when it's the time. And unless you are fully sure of that, you just don't go through it. So that's kind of the way I handle it. It's not great for business, but I think it's the right thing to do.
Now, what do you know about people that get divorced and then marry each other again afterwards? Is that a high number or a low number?
It's a low number. I think that when it does happen, people pay attention to it, which is why it does get kind of the press that it gets. But I don't think it happened. I know a few people that have done it, so I'm not going to say it never happened. But, again, I think that to the point that I was making before, I think when people, get very highly emotional from whatever's going on in their lives, they get divorced without really thinking it through, and they haven't explored all avenues. They haven't learned how to communicate. They haven't gone to marriage counseling. They haven't done everything they could do, but the love is still there and the family's still there. And so what ends up happening is that I think the emotion takes over, they get divorced, and they realize they really weren't ready, and that sometimes brings them back together.
Right, not ready to get divorced or getting divorced out of spite.
Exactly.
Yeah, makes sense. Folks, we're on with Jacqueline Newman. She's a divorce lawyer, and we're talking about a couple of interesting things. When we come back, I want to talk about how student loans are affecting 1 in 8 divorces, which are now caused by student loans. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez with you live till 1 a.m. Eastern time. If you're in the Central Time Zone, then knock an hour off of that. And we're going to get to your calls and more. Open Phone America's coming up. You get to weigh in on everything you've heard tonight. And in particular, I'd say the biggest news of the night is Kamala Harris and her acceptance speech at the DNC, which was really a tirade attacking Trump. We're going to talk about that and a lot of fact checks that we've got that prove that she has a lot of Pinocchio noses in this speech. We're going to talk about that, and I want you to weigh in. The phone number for that, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. You could start getting your calls in now. But I want to continue with our guest. Our guest is a New York area divorce attorney, Jacqueline Newman. And we're talking about this stat here that 1 in 8 divorces are now caused by student loan debt. What's up with that?
So, it's an interesting stat. I don't know if it's actually the loan itself that's causing the divorces. I think it's really much more about, them being on the same financial page. I mean, a few things can happen. If the loan is taken out before the marriage, and let's say they're not truthful about it when they're actually getting married, that causes issues. So we can start with that. And then, sometimes there are actual debts that are taken out during the marriage. And what I see a lot with that is that you'll have somebody who wants to go back to school or to obtain a different degree and incurs a lot of student loan debt. And then ultimately the career they choose does not pay them enough to almost pay back this debt. And that can cause a lot of resentment in the marriage. And I've seen that, that's happened a lot where people come in and they say, look, we incurred all this debt. We weren't able to then buy the house we wanted. We weren't able to save money in a nest egg. We weren't able to do all these things because, the husband or wife wanted to go back and, earn money. Wanted to go back and go to school. And now we're in all this debt, and yet they're still not earning enough income to really supplement the household. And so that causes a lot of issues in the marriage. And I think, money as a whole very often is obviously can be a trigger for disagreements if everybody's not on the same page. So I think that that's another reason why if they already were not in agreement on how money is spent and then someone incurs significant student debt, that just adds more fuel to the fire.
And that makes sense. And again, folks, we are on with Jacqueline Newman. She's a divorce attorney. And a different take on this that I saw on, of all places, Reddit, Reddit Personal Finance. And listen to this. It's a user named Old Man Jacob, and he says that his wife and he are considering a divorce to afford her student loan payment because there are no other options. Since they're married, the bank wants $780 a month for the next 10 years. She used to pay $150 a month. This is totally unreasonable and unaffordable. How can they lower this? If they can't come up with any other option, they will need to get a divorce, at least on paper, saying that she's made 4 years worth of payments so far. She works for a school as a counselor. She makes about $35,000 a year. He makes about $100K a year. He pays child support on his daughter, who they have 50-50 custody of, at $600 a month plus 71% of her other expenses he pays. They also pay $1,000 a month for their car and their younger daughter while the wife is at work, etc. So he lays out his thing. But the strategy here was saying that if she could say that she only has one income, they're basically committing fraud, I guess, to try to alleviate a payment. I wonder, your thoughts, do you think that weighs in on this 1 in 8 figure?
It could. I mean, I don't know many people that do that, but I have heard situations like that. I've heard situations also where people do it even, for student debts for their children. Like, definitely people get creative in these type of things. So, I mean, that definitely could be factoring into the stat that you read if somebody is doing something like that.
Now, back to what you said, because I thought it was pretty interesting, and I think finances overall are a big issue. But if you come to the marriage and you're planning on getting married and you have otherwise good credit, but you have a bunch of student loan debt that either you didn't disclose or is now coming back to bite you because maybe it was like in some sort of deferment and now you have to pay for it. Is this a problem that you see arising a lot, often?
Yeah, I see that, and I also see it with credit card debt. You have people that just are not forthcoming about their credit card debt. And so what ends up happening is that while it is still separate property debt, it still gets paid. It's just like during the marriage, especially if you're one person who's not working, they're going to pay it as a marital debt, even though if they were to get divorced and the debt still remained, it would be that person's separate property debt. But during the marriage, expenses get pooled, and so it ends up getting paid. But that's, definitely something I see people fighting about a lot. And I think, one of the solutions to that is that it's really important before you get married to have a lot of money conversations, which so many people don't because they feel it's dirty and they just don't feel like, they're in the romantic honeymoon period. They don't want to talk about yucky things like money, but it's such a mistake because for situations exactly what we're talking about.
Folks, we continue our conversation with Jacqueline Newman straight ahead. And Jacqueline, when we come back, I want to get your take on this divorce between Ben Affleck and J-Lo. I know when she got divorced some years ago from Casper Smart, I believe his name was, she had to pay like $26 million, and I guess that went really well for him. I wish somebody would have given me $26 million when I got divorced. So I want to get your thoughts on that and how that ends up with division of assets and whatnot, and if there was a prenup or not. You could break it all down for us. Folks, we're coming right back with Jacqueline Newman.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue. And J-Lo and her actor husband, lifelong love, if you've seen her documentary on, I guess, Amazon Prime or Netflix or whatever it is. She has announced, or they've announced, that they're getting a divorce. And my question is, what does this look like financially, Jacqueline Newman?
Hi. So basically, I mean, they're claiming that there is no prenuptial agreement, which is just so incredibly bizarre to me. that they wouldn't have had a prenuptial agreement. That said, I think that we're still, while it will be tricky, let's say, it's still, assuming that there isn't a prenuptial agreement in place, they will only be dealing with the assets that were accumulated during their marriage. So ultimately, they both came into this marriage, obviously, with significant assets. And whatever they accumulated in these 2 years of marriage will be what will be discussed and what ultimately would be subject to division. So while they did both have projects during these years, so there will be something to divide, again, assuming there is no prenup, they hopefully will not be in a major litigation. They'll probably be working with a mediator or some sort of arbitrator or private judge to be able to resolve all of this.
Well, it sounds like I haven't heard too much drama coming from either of those camps, so I'm hopeful that it'll be something simple and better than many other divorces that we see, including my own, because I think, when you got that much money, it seems like they're kind of like, yeah, whatever you need, let me just get out of here. It seems to be how it's coming across. Are you getting a different sense?
It's hard to know. I mean, I still, while I know that she filed on her own, and there was a little box you check whether you have an agreement, and she said no, I have been reading about it, and I've been asking reporters that I've spoken to about whether it's actually been confirmed by anyone seeing, actually a statement from either camp as to whether there was a prenup or not. Like, there's a little piece of me that wonders if she just, made a mistake on those papers because she did file without an attorney, because it's just mind-boggling to me that they really wouldn't have had a prenuptial agreement. But as I understand, they've been negotiating for a while.
Though, right? I mean, if you are filing your own divorce papers, I'm thinking that's kind of crazy in and of itself. If you've got the money, right, why wouldn't you use a lawyer?
Yeah.
So if you're doing that on your own, I'm thinking it's safe to say you probably screwed up on something else too, like not having a prenup.
Maybe, but my guess is she will obtain a lawyer. I think that the reason she filed on her own, if I had to guess, well, first of all, she did it on their 2-year anniversary, which I find whenever somebody files on Valentine's Day or a birthday or someone's anniversary, they're making a statement. So my guess is she wanted to do it kind of quickly, and it was probably an emotional decision at the time to do it on the anniversary and really send a statement to him.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, for anybody who's listening, what's your best advice on getting a prenup? I think most people listening are thinking, hey, look, I don't make enough money to get one of those. Do I really need one of those?
So it really depends. I definitely, back in the day, I would say people were coming to us just if they were incredibly wealthy. Now we're really dealing with people that aren't exceptionally wealthy, but really still want to have prenuptial agreements for either they just want, the laws are changing all the time and they just really want some sort of certainty as to what would happen in the event of divorce. If you own your own business, it's important to have. If you actively manage your assets, that's another reason. If somebody comes in with, let's say, a marital residence or a house that they're going to use as a marital residence, you might want to protect that. So, if you want to avoid spousal support, there's lots of reasons that people will enter into them now. I think they're much more commonplace than they used to be, and it's just making life easier.
Jacqueline Newman, I want to thank you for being with us. Very insightful conversation. Nobody likes divorce, but it made for good conversation tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Folks, check her out at nycdivorcelawyer.com. And your calls and more coming up right now. Open Phone America. Don't go anywhere. 833-4-VALDEZ. 833-4-VALDEZ.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the third hour of the program. We like to call it Open Phone America. And we open up the phones all across America for you to join the conversation, our late-night national town hall conversation. Looking for you to weigh in. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. And, of course, the DNC concluded tonight, and thank God for that, right? I'd had enough. I got to say the Kamala speech was better than I expected it to be, but fell short on a number of regards. She talked about a lot of different things. She talked about how how great she was with her prosecutor experience. It's funny, you know what she didn't mention in at least in large part. She talked a little bit about talking to Zelensky, but she really didn't harp on her experience as vice president. I only heard a little bit of that. The majority of it was, I'm a prosecutor, and I understand the juxtaposition here, right? She's trying to compare and contrast that she's a chief law enforcement officer, and she's going after the biggest criminal cheat there ever has been, Donald Trump, the swindler, the con man, etc. I get it. Is that enough to get people to vote? Now, maybe she's thinking, no, that may not be enough, but you combine that with being the first woman president, breaking the glass ceiling. On top of that, first woman who's also a woman of color, minority. That might be enough to fuel it. Maybe it is. I'm still at the raging Cajun, right? It's the economy, stupid. And until she can really make the case against herself and for herself at the same time, saying, look, I passed the deciding vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, but at the same time, I'm going to really reduce inflation, which I caused. It's going to be really tough. I really see it as a tough one here. As long as the Trump team stays on their message, which I don't doubt that they will. I'm pretty confident they will, because Trump his message discipline, I think, has been superb lately, really, as of like last November. So anyway, even last October, whenever he announced. So that's my point there. But Kamala Harris again today taking the stage and accepting the nomination. Listen to this.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Again, Kamala Harris accepting the Democrat nomination for President of the United States. And in my opinion, really not dropping any solid information about what she's going to do to help the economy or the border. She mentioned the border. Whenever she brings up the border, it's almost always to say, but Trump stopped us from doing meaningful legislation. But I don't think there's an American in this country that's really looking for meaningful legislation at the border, because we don't need meaningful legislation. We need meaningful Border Patrol agents, right? A meaningful border wall, a meaningful end to this crazy mass migration that's going on, which in my opinion is facilitating the flow of drugs and human trafficking and so much worse. That's what has to end. Little kids dying, that has to end. Venezuelan gangs coming here and taking up residence, that has to end. But I digress. I want to get your thoughts on this and more. I want to hit the phones. Let us go to Allison, calling us from Portland, Maine, WLOB. Allison, go right ahead. Your thoughts.
Ola, I just can't stand all this. It's so bad. It's just unbelievable how they just keep harping on these same things that Trump never said or never did. You know, that stupid thing, I'm going to be dictator on day one. This is one of those things. The lefties have no sense of humor anymore, if they ever did. Mm-hmm. Any sense of, no, I mean, there's an old joke. Remember decades ago, there would be all the, how many such and such that take the screw in a light bulb. Well, one of them is, how many lesbian feminists take the screw in a light bulb? And it was, that's not funny. Well, I feel the entire Democratic Party and the left is pretty much like that now. Yes, and so I feel they're just pretty much all like that now, and it's just unbelievable. And I'm just so worn out by it. And she just has nothing to say. I mean, essentially their platform is, we hate Trump. That's it. They might as well just all wear shirts. We're not Trump. We hate Trump. And nothing else matters. That's all that matters, right? And I'm just so worn out of it. I have a nickname for her, but don't worry, it's not dirty or anything. It's not racist or anything. And I know it's radio. So let's just say it involves the dromedary's digit and leave it at that. Anyway, and then we'll go on. Oh dear. Had a little bit too much red wine tonight. I'm so So I just can't stand this. I mean, she has no qualifications to be president, and she's done absolutely nothing in the past 3.5 years. And I'm sorry, but her laugh drives me insane. So I know that's not that important really in the grand scheme of things, but it just really does. It's fingernails on blackboard time. And I can't believe. I mean, and then with Mr. Kennedy, RFK Jr. Looking like he's going to side with Trump. I think the only thing left, and we're still worried about this, and I'm sure you are too, and other people have talked about this, but I'm still worried about the stealing, the phony votes, the late night drop boxes, like in that incredible documentary 2,000 Mules, by Dinesh D'Souza. And all of that stuff. That it's not like, oh, gee, we did it last time, we cheated, and we're not going to do it this time. We're nice. They're going to try to do it again. Now, I know there have been some attempts in different states to try to forestall that, but which state was it where they actually wouldn't allow that, and then at the last minute now they've reversed that. Now they are going to allow it, the drop box thing, Michigan or somewhere.
Oh, yeah, I think it was
Wisconsin. Yeah, I'm not
Wisconsin.
Sure. Yeah, and I just can't believe that. I mean, it's such blatant fraud, and somehow they feel they're the ones who are right. Therefore, they can cheat all the time and be phony and be wrong. I don't understand that. That's utter hypocrisy. I just don't. Right? And so I'm worn out. The ones who caused all the problems in the 3.5 years with the economy, with inflation, with the border, with crime, with all the chaos in the world scene, they're going to fix it now. They're going to stick a good old Band-Aid on it, and everything will be peachy keen. I don't think so, somehow. I really, really don't.
I'm with you.
Anyway. Okay.
I'm with you. I think there's a lot going on there. Now, what were your thoughts on divorce?
Oh, I only heard some of that. I'm sorry, I only got the tail end of that. I was thinking about that because she's talking about commiseration with divorce, and I was trying to commiserate about what's going on with the politics.
I see the connection.
Yeah,
no problem,
I know.
Allison.
That's what I was thinking. Sorry about that. Yeah, that was the connection I was making. And actually, we never talked about this, and I know we're doing politics tonight. But, the thing is, I'm actually, it's hard to explain, but I've been with a woman for 30 years, and I'm pretty much prefer women. So I know.
For the audience who doesn't know, Allison is a trans woman.
Yeah. So, I haven't had to, deal with that too much. We were thinking of getting married, but I don't know, financially and other reasons, it doesn't work out too well. And it's just, to me, it's just a piece of paper a lot. I know it's a more important thing to other people. But it just, it does seem like this, especially, you're right, like the Hollywood people. Did she say that or do you see that? Hey, I've got my 5 other houses. I can just walk out right now, right?
Right.
And it's absurd how people just treat it. I mean, even if you're not religious or something, the way that they treat marriage like it's just a revolving door, and I don't really understand that. As I said, I've been with a woman for 30 years, and boy, have we had our ups and downs. But we're still together, and so.
Well, Godspeed to you. I'm glad you didn't get divorced, honestly, because it can be a really expensive proposition and filled with heartache and just, very little good comes of it. Although once I did a topic on what's something called gray divorce. I think we did that last year, and this was pretty interesting. We had somebody talk about how prevalent it is for people older than 50 or older than 55 to get divorced. And one of our regular callers, I think it was Sue in Schwenksville, if I'm not mistaken, she called in and said it was the best thing she'd ever done. I think she got divorced at 70, if I'm remembering the story right. And she was remarried again by 72 and said it's been the best thing ever. And it gave me so much hope. Because I was like, I would like to get remarried again one day. I'm 46, but I don't know that that's in the immediate plans. But we'll see what happens. So anyway, it's just an interesting thing. So Allison, thanks for your call. I appreciate it. Godspeed to you. Folks, we're going to get to the rest of your calls and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I know there are people of various political views watching tonight, and I want you to know I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me. to put country above party and self, to hold sacred America's fundamental principles, from the rule of law to free and fair elections to the peaceful transfer of power.
Okay, that again, Kamala Harris, seemingly making stuff up as she goes along. But okay, we'll go with it, right? We will go with it and see exactly how that works out. But it seems a little contrived to me, to say the least. Anyway, I want to continue with your calls. I know you guys have reactions to the DNC speech from Kamala Harris this evening. I want to go to Larry, calling from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN. Go right ahead. All right, let's put Larry on hold. It's tough to hear him. Let's continue and go to Joe in Salem, Arkansas, KSAR. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Rich, that has to be the biggest batch of lies that I've heard from Camilla, and I don't know when. She's learned well from Joe. She also gives credence to the definitions of attorney, her and Joe both being attorneys. To attorn means to roll. You've heard of people getting rolled before.
Oh, yeah.
She's the adversary, the devil, the Oxford says in England. And also she is a twister of words, big time. That's another definition of attorney, to twist or to roll. All this applies to her, and of course Joe too. But she's, nothing she said is. I couldn't find anything that was correct. But yeah, I agree with you. It sounded good. But then again, people don't know this, but some may. But the root words of democracy is demon rule, and Democrats is demon rulers. Where Republican, you've got public right in there. They're the party of the people, if anybody ever was. So, versus, I don't know why anybody want to be any part of a party that was based on demon rule.
Yeah, good point, Joe. I appreciate it. Thank you for the call. Big shout out to KSAR. And listen, I think that a lot of these policies are rooted in evil. I have to say, abortion, rooted in evil. These unnecessary belabored wars. This is not necessarily to maintain the American position. This is just to feed the military-industrial complex. Very evil at the cost of many, many lives. And it's a damn shame, to say the least. So I'm with you there. Why people support this, I think a lot of people buy into rhetoric, and it takes a while to see things for what they are. Sometimes you really give people the benefit of the doubt because people are genuinely good people. Anyway, Joe, I appreciate it. Let us continue. I want to go to Pat. Pat's calling us from Arizona, where President Trump was today. Sedona, Arizona, listening online. Go ahead, Pat.
Hey, Rich, how you doing? Thanks for taking my call. Hey, that Monday's show was interesting at best. I like that. As always, you have great shows. Well, there's a lot about Pamela. You know where she was talking, and the Democrats were up in Illinois in a safe little place. And guess where old Trump was? He was along the border in Arizona, and he had 6 family members there that had lost family members to illegal aliens through murder and rape and murder and destruction. It's happening to our state, and you know what? You'll never hear it on the news. And that's a sad thing. I don't really blame the Democrats or Pamela or Biden. I blame the news media because the American people are not informed, and they're at fault. Because there is something I want to say. I know it will sound crazy what I'm about to say to you, but I don't think Pamela's a legal citizen. Because I saw something on Telegram about her being born in Jamaica. Now, here we go again about this Obama thing. Was Obama really an American citizen? Nobody really ever dug into that. Maybe nobody will ever dig into this. But if she's not a legal American citizen,
Well, no, I think they did dig in. I think this was just, sometimes in political campaigns, as far as I know, I take heat for stuff like this all the time because I don't believe that she'd be running for president today. I don't believe that she would have become president before. I think Trump tweeted about this stuff, asking the question, is she even eligible? Taking shots. And he took his shots, and people have run with that. But it's literally been years. And obviously, if this was an issue, Trump wouldn't be talking about how bad she is on the border and how bad she is with inflation. He'd still be on that same topic saying she can't even run for president. And he would have filed lawsuits like he's very good at, and he's good at winning them, too. So I think it's safe to say it's a non-issue. She's eligible to run. She's literally the sitting and outgoing vice president and candidate as of tonight, official nominee of the Democrat Party. So I don't think that's an issue that's a real issue. That's as real as an issue as Obama being born in Kenya. And again, it's not whether I believe it or not. It's what we can prove. And that's ultimately the business we're in, is what we can prove, at least the one I'm in. Some people are in the business of making the most outlandish claims they can and getting a lot of clicks for that. I wish I had that gift, but I don't have it. But you brought something up, Pat, that I think is remarkable. And you're right. Trump was doing his job while she's out there making up stories and dressed in all black and bringing all these Hollywood people to her convention. He's out there at the border with the mom of the young lady who was killed, one of the several young ladies that were murdered by these illegal aliens. One of them was Jacqueline Nungarai, who her mom, Alexis Nungarai, was at the event with Trump, and she, hopefully we have time to play this. Here's what she had to say.
I just really, really, really want everybody to please take into consideration how important border control is, because we're losing very innocent people to heinous crimes that shouldn't be happening in the first place.
She's right.
So
this should not be happening in the first place. But there she is, pouring out her heart to everybody that was at this press conference that was at the border today in Arizona. And I have to say, this stuff to me is moving because it's real, right? This isn't he said, she said. This is the mother of a little girl that was killed. And that's brutal. Pat, thanks for bringing this up. I appreciate it. Folks, we'll get the rest of that clip when we come back, as well as the threats against President Trump. There was a manhunt on the guy that made these threats against Trump. I think they've caught him now, but we'll get his reaction to that as well on the way back. Folks, don't go anywhere. It's Rich Valdez, America at Night, 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. Your calls and more coming up right now. Don't go anywhere.
Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
66-year-old Ronald Lee Serva. That's according to law enforcement. He is also wanted on warrants in both Wisconsin and Arizona for crimes ranging from DUI to failing to register as a sex offender. In a statement, the local sheriff says the subject has been taken into custody without incident in Cochise County. We appreciate all of the information received and the incredible collaborative efforts of all of our public safety partners. News of the manhunt broke this afternoon as the former president was just arriving here in Cochise County to tour the border and speak on the issue here. As you know, a manhunt is currently underway in Cochise County, where we are standing. And it's for a man who the sheriff's department says was threatening to kill you. Does that make you want to change the way you do events or anything? How do you respond to that?
It makes me want to get away from this interview because you and I are standing out here. And I was told, do you think you could do it someplace else? But I said, I can't keep you waiting. You are Fox after all. But no, I've heard about that. But I have to do my job. It's a job. It's a dangerous job. But I have to do my job. This is so sad, and you've seen the whole thing today, and I hope you're going to report on it fairly. But this border is so dangerous, it's so bad and so horrible to people. They're losing children, wives and husbands, and it's just a horrible thing. And we can stop it, and Kamala is a disaster. She's a radical left Marxist, and she wants an open border. She wants all the people, the man you're talking about, she wants him to just flow right through. No, we can't do that.
That is President Trump's response to this man that put these threats out against President Trump. The man's since been caught. They did catch the guy, and that's the story there. I want to get your reaction to these stories and more. Let me see. Where do we go? Let me see. Who did we leave? We left off with, let's go over here. Let's go to Paul in Zanesville, Ohio. Go right ahead.
Hey, good evening, Rich. I apologize for my voice tonight. Kamala Harris, in my opinion, after what I seen go on there, I was watching it as I was listening to you. She is the epitome of a liar. You know, she lied about so many things. You know, she's talking about let's make America great and joy, 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 whatever. But she has left that border open. The borders are. You know, we've got what? Trump estimated 20 million people that have come into this country. You know, she's a socialist, in my opinion. I get that the DNC, you know, that they're going to have their time, but I think it's going to fizz out, and people are going to start understanding that we need to address the economy, you know, our border, which she never did, and all she talked about, it was a bunch of fluff. That's what I heard tonight, Rich. And you asked people's opinion, and that's mine. And like I said, I apologize for my voice. I'm a little under the weather, Rich, but I love your show.
Oh, man. Paul, you're so kind. I hope you feel better. A little honey and tea goes a long way with the voice, just so you know. It works like a charm. But I think you make a good point. She's definitely a liar, and I'm glad you pointed it out and that you saw that, because I think most people, you know, when I was a little kid, there was a joke, and I'm sure it was when you were a kid too. How do you know if a politician's lying? Their mouth is moving, right? So I think there's a degree of that people always believe and see. But adding to that, I mean, tonight she really, really tried to paint a picture. And while she was trying to paint this evil picture of Trump, she was wearing this all black outfit. And I honestly, I don't understand the symbolism there. I really don't. I don't know which image consultant told her, stand in front of this like golden brown background and wear black. This is going to sell you to the American people. Not, you know, the traditional navy blue or red pantsuit or something like that. Or maybe all white, like, you know, like the shining white knight coming to save the day. I really couldn't figure out. Even her sister, right? Her sister Maya had a hot pink pantsuit, which looked really good on stage. It was very attractive, you know, to the eye. I really feel like she looked like she was attending a funeral. It was very dark. And then she starts just lobbing one lie after the other, saying that Trump said he was going to destroy Medicare and Social Security. He's never said that. It just didn't happen. I mean, she's going to try and conflate that somehow to, you know, members of your party. Tim Scott, the senator from Florida, they tried to say that he said that, and he didn't say that either. But these are some of the things, the freedom to drink clean water and the freedom to vote. I mean, when did Trump ever endanger any of these things, right? These are just platitudes, red meat for her leftist voters. And I get that. That's the name of the game. But some of it just, to me, was not in line. It wasn't on brand to match up with Trump. Unless, you know, it's on brand for those that truly hate Trump and don't listen to the other side. But I try to listen to both sides. And to me, it just, I don't know. But I appreciate it, Paul. Thank you. Hope you feel better. And let me see. Let's go to Anita. Anita's calling from Naples, Florida. Anita, what radio station are you listening to? Anita, can you hear me?
It is WGUF. Yes.
Welcome. So tell me, what's on your mind? What did you think of the Kamala Harris speech this evening?
Am I talking to Rich?
You are. Welcome.
Rich, you are wonderful. Usted es fantástico.
Oh, gracias.
I feel my sister lived in Guam, and she said that socialism was the worst thing that ever happened, and she couldn't believe she was with her husband in the army over there, based in Guam. And I could have thrown up just listening to Kamala talk all these lies that she did, and I love the way you call her Pinocchio because it was true.
Yeah.
This woman cannot speak without a teleprompter. This woman cannot speak without a teleprompter, and I just don't understand. I know why they threw her in. That was the last resort that the Democrats had, and the reason Biden moved out of the whole thing was because I feel that he just chickened out and he didn't want to face Trump again. You know, I never liked Trump before, and I used to change the channel when I used to see him. You're fired, and I'm going to tell you something. When this man started doing things for us, all those years that he was there, he was also learning to be a president, and I give him that. But to me, he's the best president we've ever had. He's saving our country, and this woman is selling out on us.
Yeah,
and she's going to throw at the end. She's going to throw Biden under the bus. You watch that, because she's going to want to tear herself away from him. Anyway, I like the way you say, Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. Yes, that's her nickname here, that's for sure. Well, Anita, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think you're right. I think, her use of the teleprompter made her look good. She delivered a good speech. It wasn't an excellent speech, but it was a good speech. And that's why I give her 15 minutes at the debate, right? The debate's going to be 90 minutes. I give her 15 minutes of looking good and shining. She's going to have a couple of, canned responses, just like Biden, but a little different for her. She's going to have a couple where she's going to look for the opening to throw in that he's a convicted felon, that he's a rapist, that he's not a woman, that she is a woman, right? She's got a couple of these, and those will be played on loop by the media so that she can score some points and get a little bump in her polls. But ultimately, what you said is really going to kick in. The fact that she's not going to have teleprompters. She's going to have some notes. She's going to have her mind. She's going to have these canned responses, these little attack lines. But she's not really going to be able to handle Trump. Now, of course, he's going to attack her. She'll probably be prepared for most of the attacks. But if he hits her with good policy stuff that she doesn't see coming, it's over. It's over. It's going to be a KO. It's going to be night-night. I don't think she can handle it. I think just like when Lester Holt said, well, you haven't been to the border, after she said, we've been to the border. And then she said, well, I haven't been to Europe either. I think it's going to be a situation like that where she starts talking about the school bus and going in circles. We'll see what happens. Anyway, Anita, thank you for the call. Te lo agradezco mucho. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Anita in Naples, Florida, WGUF. Folks, we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I just really, really, really want everybody to please take into consideration how important border control is, because we're losing very innocent people to heinous crimes that shouldn't be happening in the first place. So please, please, I really hope everybody can hear my pain, to just please, he needs to be in office, and we need better control. We need to stop this. We need to stop losing our littles. We need to start losing children, mothers, sisters, because now I get to grieve every single day. Every milestone that hits gets harder because she's not there for it. She was going to be a 7th grader. She had her whole life ahead of her. And it was viciously taken away by 2 evil, heinous monsters.
She's not lying. I hate these types of stories, honestly. The only reason I bring them up, and I know I'm criticized oftentimes, people say I'm being prejudicial against the rape of anyone that is done by an illegal alien versus the rapes that occur by U.S. citizens. I'm not trying to highlight the rape. I'm trying to highlight crimes by illegal aliens that, in my opinion, should not happen, right? I have my own children in my house. If they break something in my house, that comes with the territory of having children. If the neighbor's kid comes into my house and breaks something, I don't need that, right? And that's exactly the point that I'm making here. These things shouldn't happen. We shouldn't be importing crime. We shouldn't be importing criminals. This is not the business that we're in. When Kamala Harris is talking about the freedom for what? Let me just make sure I get this quote right. For kids to drink clean water and the freedom to vote. Or last night, Tim Walz said he was talking about the freedom for kids to be able to go to school without fearing they'd get shot. What about the freedom for this mom, for her 7th grader or 6th grader, to be able to walk around without the expectation of being raped and killed by 2 illegal aliens? What about her rights? What about the little girl's rights? You've got to be kidding me. This woman presided over these crimes. She allowed these crimes. She's done nothing in effect to stop these crimes. She says she's a prosecutor, but she hasn't prosecuted a single person on this border. Now, she's not a prosecutor today, but she doesn't even take them to the court of public opinion and call it out. I want to know that we're safe, and I don't think anybody, I really don't. I can't think of it. If you can call here honestly and say, I think we are going to be a safer, more secure country under Harris and Walz versus Trump and Vance, I dare you. I dare you to do it. Because it's coming from a purely partisan place. That's for sure. That's like me saying I would pick the Republicans over the Democrats on abortion policy. I'd be stupid to do that. If I was favoring abortion policy, I'd find the most radical leftist I could find that wants to kill babies after they're outside the womb. Because that's that's going to be the most effective person if that's what I'm trying to do. There isn't a scenario that exists where Democrats are better on the border than Republicans. That's just a fact. Anyway, I want to get to your calls. Let's see. Where were we? Let's go to Winston calling us from Shelburne, Vermont, WVMT. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich. It's so great to talk to you.
Thank you.
I don't know if I can mention another radio talk show host.
That's fine. So you're listening to a different radio host, and what did they say?
Well, you know Bill O'Reilly, of course.
Yes.
And I was listening to him the other night, and he said, anybody, and he gave all the reasons. I mean, we know all the reasons why.
What did he say?
All the stupid things. What's that?
What did he say?
He said anybody that would vote for Kamala Harris is dumb. It's just dumb.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that. It's literally the point that I was just making now, saying anybody who could sit here and say that they prefer Harris and Walz on border security or on so many issues that are really pressing right now, they're lying. And yeah, I would say it's a dumb idea. It's a dumb proposition to put your vote with a candidate that is, I'm going to say, she's attractive, that she delivers a good teleprompter speech. She's always giggling. That may be attractive to some people. But at the end of the day, right, where things really matter, she's horrible on fiscal policy. She's horrible on foreign policy. She's horrible on border security. What is she good at? She says she's a prosecutor, but none of the bad guys are going to jail on her watch. And she funded the Minnesota Freedom Fund to let the people that were burning down Minnesota during the George Floyd riots to make sure they didn't go to jail. I can't think of a single thing where she's really doing something of substance. Now, if we want to talk about speeches that she's given, her support for Bidenomics, which we're calling now Kamalanomics, these things obviously are not going to help her. They don't bode well for her, and they don't bode well for the United States. So what is one to do except cast their vote in a dumb manner for someone like that? I completely agree with the O-Man and with you, Winston. Thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Folks, we pause right here. We come back with the speed round, which means we're going to get to your calls very, very quickly.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
So Kamala Harris accepted the Democrat nomination for president, saying she accepts it on behalf of the people. What's interesting is that the people didn't vote for her, not a single vote, 0 votes. They all voted for Joe Biden, the 14 million Democrats that voted. And that was pretty funny. Let's go to Barbara in Chicago, Illinois, WLS. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. My guess about the black outfit is that Kamala was probably told she needs to appeal to young, nihilist hipster votes.
Interesting.
So
Might
she'll
be right.
probably end up dropping the voting age to 16 if she gets in.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. They've talked about that. AOC has talked about that. They want to do that as much as they want to drop all sorts of ages so that there is no longer crimes like pedophilia. They've changed the terminology for that to minor attracted persons, and they want to make the age of accountability a lot younger so that, you have to hear some of the arguments that we've heard about this stuff where people are constantly saying, in other countries, you're as young as 11 or as 14. And, I'm thinking, we're not in other countries. We're here. I've had an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old. That should not be the age of accountability. Anyway, I think you're right, Barbara. And what did you think of the speech overall?
I didn't listen to it. I can't bear the sound of that woman's voice. I only listen to Republicans talking about what happened. So, I by choice become the low information non-voter, Rich. I have basically, I'm withdrawing from the entire world over this. My frustration is so extreme. I just think I'm really racking my brains trying to find some mechanism by which we can just by which we can punish worldwide stupidity until it dies off. And there isn't. And as I told your screener, there's unfortunately nothing we can do to stop events like this kind of persecution of Trump from happening. It happens throughout history, and it will continue to happen because that's just the way things go.
Evil exists. You're right, Barbara. Good point, but don't give up. Hang in there. Things are definitely going to get better. My gut tells me so, and I've got a pretty good-sized gut. Barbara, thanks for the call. Shout out to WLS Chicago. Let me see. Who else do we have here? Frank, Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Go for it.
Hi, Rich. They say that people with high IQs tend to have less common sense, and like the natty professor. But with women with high IQs, they can be giddy and cackling, and it's a kind of superiority complex.
Well, Frank, I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I don't think she has a high IQ or common sense. So I think Kamala Harris is the exception to your rule on both accounts. Folks, I appreciate your calls. John and Paul, sorry I didn't get to you tonight. Definitely get to you tomorrow if I can, as long as you call in. Folks, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night and God bless. I'm Rich Valdez.